The cabin lights were dim, the engines hummed softly, and most passengers were lost in their own small worlds. No one paid attention to the old woman sitting quietly by the window. Her hands rested calmly in her lap, her eyes focused on the dark sky beyond the wing. To everyone else, she was just another tired traveler on a long flight. But miles above the clouds, something unexpected was unfolding. As the plane cruised forward, the cockpit radio suddenly crackled with a tense transmission. Air traffic control went silent for a moment, then a sharp, urgent voice cut through the static. F-35 pilots were calling out a name that didn't belong in civilian airspace. Widow 6, they said, again and again, their tone filled with urgency and respect. The captain froze, unsure why a military call sign was echoing through his headset. Passengers felt the shift before they understood it. The air seemed heavier. The flight attendants exchanged nervous glances. And that's when the old woman slowly opened her eyes, reacting to a name no one else on board recognized. Her calm expression changed, just slightly, as if a buried past had suddenly been called back to life. Whatever Widow 6 meant, it clearly wasn't random, and somehow, it was connected to the quiet woman in seat 14A. But why would elite F-35 pilots be calling for her? And what did they know that no one else on that flight did? The old woman shifted in her seat as the plane continued through calm skies, her fingers tightening just a little around the armrest. Years ago, she had promised herself she would never hear that call sign again. Widow 6 belonged to a chapter of her life buried under silence, loss, and duty. To the world, she was simply Eleanor, a retired school librarian, traveling to see her grandson. But the radio call had stirred memories she had worked hard to forget. Up in the cockpit, the captain asked air traffic control for clarification, his voice steady but strained. The response was brief and cautious. 2 F-35 jets were shadowing the aircraft, running a routine escort, yet their interest wasn't in the plane itself. They were searching for confirmation. For her, the name Widow 6 was linked to a classified rescue mission from decades earlier, one that had saved lives and disappeared from public record. Back in the cabin, the hum of conversation returned, but unease lingered. A nearby passenger noticed Eleanor's pale face and wondered if she felt sick. She offered a small smile, hiding the weight of history pressing on her chest. Outside the window, distant lights moved swiftly through the clouds. Unseen by most, whatever the pilots were expecting to find, Eleanor knew one thing for certain. If they had remembered Widow 6, then the past was no longer content to stay buried and it was closing in fast. Eleanor closed her eyes for a moment, steadying her breath as the plane continued its quiet journey. She could almost hear the echoes of another cockpit, another sky, another time when fear and responsibility walked side by side. Back then, Widow 6 wasn't just a call sign. It was a role given to her during a joint mission that demanded absolute calm under pressure. She had never flown a fighter jet, but she had been the voice that guided pilots home when systems failed and options ran out. In the present, the captain's co-pilot lowered his voice, worried that the military escort meant more than routine safety. The F-35 pilots requested a visual confirmation of the passenger list, careful with their words, as if someone else might be listening. Their concern hinted at unfinished business, something that had never been properly closed. For them, Widow 6 was a legend, tied to survival. And legends don't simply fade away. In the cabin, a flight attendant paused beside Eleanor, offering water and a gentle question. Eleanor nodded, grateful for the normalcy. A man across the aisle watched the exchange, sensing a story beneath her calm surface. Outside, the sleek shadows of the jets slipped closer, visible now through scattered clouds. Eleanor knew why this moment felt dangerous. The mission she was part of had ended with unanswered questions, missing records, and promises never kept. If those F-35 pilots were calling her now, it meant someone had reopened that file. And once secrets resurface at 30,000 feet, there is no easy way to put them back. Eleanor's heart raced as the hum of the F-35s grew louder outside the window. Their sleek forms darted through the clouds like shadows with a purpose, and she felt the weight of decades pressing down on her chest. She hadn't anticipated this. No ordinary flight was supposed to dredge up a past she had buried so carefully. Yet here it was, alive and urgent, calling her name across the radio waves and through the sky. The captain leaned closer to the co-pilot, whispering about the unusual military interest. Why would they track a single passenger? He muttered, eyes flicking toward Eleanor. Around her, tension seeped into the cabin. Passengers shifted uneasily, sensing something beyond their understanding. Eleanor kept her gaze steady on the clouds, hiding the fear that threatened to show. Memories of missions long ago flashed in her mind. Emergency extractions, coded messages, lives balanced on split-second decisions. Each recollection reminded her that Widow 6 was not just a title. It was a responsibility that had never truly ended. She knew the pilots wouldn't stop until they had answers. A sudden jolt from the seatbelt sign snapped everyone's attention forward. The cockpit radio crackled again, a more urgent tone this time. Confirm visual, the F-35 pilot demanded. Eleanor felt a cold shiver run down her spine. The moment of truth was approaching, and she realized that whatever was coming, it wouldn't be simple. The past she thought was quiet was now about to collide with the present. And there was no turning back. The hum of the F-35s seemed to pulse in time with Eleanor's own heartbeat. Just as she braced herself for the pilot's next move, a new voice came over the radio, sharper and colder than before. Widow 6, do you copy? You are not cleared for this airspace. Eleanor's stomach dropped. This wasn't just a routine check. Someone else was in place, someone who knew her past in ways even the pilots didn't. In the cabin, the atmosphere shifted. A man in business attire glanced nervously at the cockpit door, then back to Eleanor, his hand tightening round his briefcase. Eleanor felt it too, a presence she couldn't see, yet could sense. As if the plane itself carried unseen eyes watching her every move. The quiet journey she had expected was gone. Her mind raced through possibilities. Could someone from her old mission have tracked her all these years? Had someone finally discovered the records of Widow 6 and decided she needed to be found, or worse, silenced? She could feel the stakes climbing higher with every passing second. The pilots outside adjusted their formation, circling closer, their intentions urgent but controlled. Eleanor clenched her fists, realizing that the flight was no longer just about her destination. It was about survival, secrets, and a past that refused to stay buried. And now, it seemed, the danger wasn't only from what she remembered, it was from what she hadn't even seen yet. The plane shuddered slightly as the F-35s tightened their formation. The sky outside alive with sleek jets slicing through clouds. Eleanor's pulse raced, but this time with determination rather than fear. She reached into her bag and pulled out a small worn envelope, the contents of which could explain everything: the codes, the mission logs, the lives that had depended on her. The envelope had been her secret for decades, and now it was the key to ending the chase. Widow 6, confirm identity. The lead F-35 pilot's voice cut through the static again. Eleanor took a deep breath and pressed the small transponder she had carried all these years. A soft click and a pulse of recognition ran through the airwaves. Instantly, the jets shifted their stance, tension easing as acknowledgement came through. Her past, finally recognized and validated, was no longer a threat. It was a story of survival, skill, and honor. The cabin slowly relaxed, passengers unaware of the drama that had just played above them. Eleanor sank into her seat, exhausted but relieved. Yet as the plane began its descent, the cockpit radio crackled one final time. A different voice, unfamiliar and urgent, whispered, Widow 6, you're not the only one left to answer. Eleanor's eyes widened, realizing that the secrets of her past were far from over, and someone else, somewhere, was waiting ready to change everything again. The plane touched down smoothly, and the tension that had gripped Eleanor's chest for hours finally began to ease. The F-35s lifted off, their mission complete, leaving only the soft hum of the engines behind. Passengers clapped politely, oblivious to the drama that had unfolded above them. While Eleanor remained seated, quietly reflecting on the storm that had passed, she had survived, not just the flight, but the ghosts of a past she had thought long buried. At the airport, a discreet team waited for her, ready to debrief and ensure her safety. The codes, the files, and the legacy of Widow 6 were no longer secrets, yet they weren't fully resolved either. Eleanor understood that some chapters of life don't end neatly, they evolve, waiting for the right moment to surface again. As she stepped into the bright terminal, she felt a sense of closure and yet anticipation. The courage, patience, and calm that had once saved countless lives now guided her own path forward. She smiled faintly, realizing that the world saw an ordinary elderly woman, but she carried the knowledge and strength of someone who had faced impossible odds. Eleanor walked toward the waiting car, her mind alert but at peace. She knew one truth above all: